Good morning, everybody. My name is Jacqueline Monteith, science coach with Frontier School Division. I am out here at the gorgeous Churchill Northern Studies Center, and this is the location of our stream this morning. We are doing a panel on Meet the Students and Meet the Scientists. So essentially this is going to be a general conversation about any topic at all that you are interested in, and we will be hearing from our students from Churchill here at Duke of Marlborough School, as well as scientists from a variety of institutions that are working now in Churchill. So we're going to get started, but before we do, I would like to say a huge thank you to a few of our partners who have made this possible. First of all, Churchill Northern Studies Center for being able to host us and to help support us in all of these initiatives that we've been doing. A big thank you to Polar Bears International, who have been hosting us for this entire week and have made amazing lifelong memories for all of us. Frontiers North Adventures, who have also been a big part of this week and making all of our streams possible. We also have additional partners and guests from all over the country. So I know I've forgotten a few, so I'm going to leave it at that and get back to some more if I've forgotten about them. But I would also like to give a huge shout out to Frontier School Division and the school here in Churchill for participating as well and making all of our crazy ideas come true. So we're going to start with some introductions from our panelists. We're going to start on this side here.
Hello, I'm Madison Watts.
I'm Skylar Park.
I'm Leanne Fishback. I'm the science coordinator at the Churchill Northern Studies Center.
I'm Elise McCall. I'm the Director of Conservation Outreach and Staff Scientist at Polar Bears International.
I'm Maxwell Burke.
Oh, no, we'll get that one.
Hi, I'm Valeria Vergara. I'm a beluga research scientist at Ocean Wise, which is a conservation organization headquartered at the Vancouver Aquarium.
Hi, I'm Hillary White, and I'm part of the science staff here at the Churchill Northern Studies Center.
Hi, I'm Tina Ozarkowicz.
Hi, I'm Brindy Botello.
Thank you. We're going to get started here. Before we do, I'd like to give a bit of instruction to our virtual audience. Now is the time to start submitting your questions, and the more questions that you have for any of our panelists, the better. I'm going to start with a question for some of our students. I would like to know what your favorite parts about living in Churchill are, and Max, I'm going to start with you for this question.
I think the favorite parts of living in Churchill is just, well, I mean, what's behind us? I mean, like, I don't really see anywhere else in the world where you can look outside your back window and see nature in its wildest form.
Thank you. Madison, same question for you, so I'll pass that mic down.
One of my favorite things about living in Churchill is, like Max said, being able to look out the window and see a polar bear standing out there, being able to come to the study center, spend a night, learn new things, and there's just so much beauty and wildlife.
Thank you. Excellent. Tina, same question. What's one of your favorite parts about living in Churchill?
The people. That's one of my favorite parts, and of course the scenery.
Good, thank you. Skylar.
The thing I love about Churchill is like everything, the environment, the people, and how everyone can be so kind.
Excellent. And Brindy. One of your favorite parts or something that you like about living in Churchill?
I like going out to my cabin and going skidooing and enjoying the wildlife.
Good, thank you. I'm going to move over to our scientists here, and Hillary, we'll start with you. I'd like to know a bit about who you are and what you do and what brought you to Churchill.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm actually just finishing up my PhD right now. I'm out of a university in Southern Ontario called Wilfrid Laurier University, but I've been coming up to Churchill since about 2012 to do work on the freshwater lakes and ponds in Wapusk National Park. So I'm looking specifically at how climate change is affecting those freshwater resources in the park. Yeah, and I've been able to come and work at the study center through all of that, and now I'm helping out as part of bear season, and it's been incredible.
Excellent, thank you. Leanne, same question for you.
I've lived here in Churchill for the last 15 years and worked as the science coordinator here at the center. And before that, I actually worked farther north in Canada in some of the high Arctic regions on those islands that a lot of people don't ever get a chance to visit. And when I was in Hillary's position, I was finishing my PhD and looking for a job. I wanted a place where I could actually live and work in the north, and this position was available here in Churchill, and I've been here ever since and really enjoyed my time here.
Thank you. Elisa.
I grew up in British Columbia and started down the wildlife biology path, and I was studying deer mice and toads in the grasslands and forests, and I kind of accidentally bumped into a polar bear researcher who was doing research out here in Churchill, and so I got to come up 7 or so years ago now and start working on a master's project and volunteering with Polar Bears International, and it just kept going. I loved the area, loved Churchill, and loved the polar bears, and just thrilled to be able to continue working here.
Thank you. Valeria.
So I actually grew up in Argentina, of all places, at the other end of the world, and I moved to Canada in 1989 to study biology. I was really, really passionate about the way social animals interact with one another and communicate with one another. And I worked with all sorts of species, from red foxes to bighorn sheep to Arctic wolves, until I began my PhD studying beluga whales, specifically beluga whale communication. And I worked for a number of years at the Vancouver Aquarium. I'm still working there, but I took my research to different areas of Canada. So I've worked with beluga populations up in the high Arctic and in the St. Lawrence River Estuary, in the Nelson River Estuary, and Churchill for the first time in July. And I guess I loved it so much that I had to be back.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to go back to the students here. I'd like to know if there's anything that you find difficult about living in Churchill. Tina, I'm going to start with you on this one.
What I find difficult about Churchill is our train, how we don't railway, how we can't put things on it anymore, like, yeah. And polar bears, because it's difficult walking to school when you know there could be a polar bear right behind you, following you.
Absolutely, I wouldn't want that.
And the cold.
For sure.
And the cold's bad, and the snow.
What temperature do you find it gets to in Churchill in the winter?
-50.
Before the wind chill?
I think it's with the wind chill.
Okay.
Or it's like 40 without it.
Yeah.
40 going on to 50 without it.
The kind of cold that takes your breath away when you walk outside?
Yeah, or the kind of wind where you can like literally lean back and the wind is pushing you forward, where you like feel like you're gonna flop onto your bed, but meanwhile the wind's pushing you and you can just like go at a degree and then like stand at a degree and the wind is just pushing you back up.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Same question for Skylar. Skylar, what do you find is difficult about living in Churchill?
I think the prices probably, and the weather.
Okay.
It's too hot, right? Sure.
The comment was it must be too hot here. Thank you. Madison, what do you find difficult about living in Churchill?
The prices, and the prices going up because of the train not being able to come to Churchill, and the prices have just gone up and not many tourists have been coming to Churchill, and our economy has been going down, so it's not very good.
Okay, thank you. Brindy, what do you find difficult about living in Churchill?
The prices and the railway not having like to travel as much as we used to with the railway on the tracks. And yeah.
And that was such a sudden change for the community as well.
Yeah.
Not anticipated. Max, what do you find difficult about living in Churchill?
Well, I guess there isn't much to talk about other than the fact that our railway, which was the thread that was holding the community together, is now gone. We're seeing people moving out. We're seeing more people than usual having to go to the food. We're seeing so many different things. We're seeing less people, and so it just, well, we don't know what is going to happen. And we're faced with all this uncertainty, and I think that the uncertainty is probably one of the worst things, is that we don't know if the tracks are going to be fixed or if we're going to just have to live without it.
Thank you. You speak very well to that very serious problem that's happening throughout the community. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go back to our professionals here. I would like to know from each of you, maybe Elisa, we'll start with you. If you can think back to your very first time coming to Churchill and what your impression was, what you fell in love with, and how long you've been here now.
So I first came to Churchill in 2010, the fall of 2010 during bear season, and I came up with Polar Bears International to volunteer, and I got into town at night, and the next morning went right out on a tundra buggy. And I remember seeing a sleeping bear, and everyone was pointing at it, being like, there's a polar bear, and I was like, I don't see anything. Before you can pick up polar bears, before you get to know what they look like. And then eventually it stood up and started walking, and it was just like, wow, it was beautiful and so big. And the landscape up here is so unique. After spending most of my life in British Columbia, a lot of trees, a lot of mountains, and then coming out here, at first it seems a lot more sparse, but then you really get to know the deep beauty of the landscape and the just incredible wildlife out here that makes its home in this crazy environment. The trees are amazing. There's so much life here that's kind of a little more subtle, but I just absolutely fell in love with the tundra and the polar bears and everything up here. It was great.
Excellent, thank you. Leanne, what brought you to Churchill first, and how long have you been here?
Yeah, so I've been in Churchill for 15 years working here, and the first time I came was actually for the job interview, and so I was a little bit nervous when I was coming because I wasn't quite sure what this place was that I was going to and potentially going to have a job, but I was really excited. I came first in August of 2002, and when I was flying in, I just remember how much water there was, and just thinking as a freshwater geochemist working on freshwater, how exciting that was. Because in the Arctic, water means life and the diversity of life. So just a really great opportunity to see a landscape in the north that I was really excited about. And I would say the second time I came I was really excited because I had the job, and I, as a PhD graduate, was really excited about being able to be paid for what I was doing. And I came back in the wintertime, and I remember just the excitement of getting into the Churchill airport and knowing that I had this great opportunity and to work, and it was cold, and I love the cold. So I was really excited about it, even though it was February and very cold and very dark.
That would be an interesting time of year for somebody brand new to come to Churchill and get their first exposure in the middle of winter.
I think maybe it was overwhelmed by the excitement of having a job.
Valeria, your first experience when you were here in the summertime, and what your impressions are so far.
Sure. So my first incredible experience was just flying over vast, vast landscape that you need to fly over before you land in Churchill. You really, really realize just how far north and how much nature there is around here. And then I landed on July 1st, and within half an hour, I was facing the July 1st parade in the community of Churchill. Everybody was out. absolutely everybody, you know, great sense of humor, all these things parading through. And I commented, it seems like the whole town is out. And somebody overheard me, somebody I still don't know, and that older lady says to me, "Oh yes, my dear, all 900 strong family of us." And I just loved that first moment in Churchill. And then getting out with the whales, the next day we had a wonderful guide, Tiffany, that came with us. And within exactly a minute and a half, we had a herd of about 300 beluga. So she said, "Here we are." "What do you mean, here we are?" "Here we are." I don't think it ever took that short a time for me to find whales in the field. So that was another wonderful thing, just to really be able to get out there every day with the whales and know the data that I would collect would come. You know, there was just not a whale-less day, and that was great.
That's an amazing first impression of the community. Fantastic. Hillary, same question for you.
Yeah. So I came up to Churchill for the first time in June 2012, so it was the end of June, and I had just accepted my PhD position, and I was on the fence about doing a PhD. I wasn't really sure, and then my advisor was like, "Oh, well, you'll be going into the field right away," and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'm on board with that." So, yep, I flew up to Churchill, and I got picked up by the people from the study center, and I came out here for the first time, and I was like, wow, I didn't know what to expect when I came up here, and to be able to work out of a center like this, it was a dream come true for a scientist, really. And then within the first couple of days, I went into a helicopter for the first time, and I flew over Wapus National Park, which I think everyone have been saying that just flying over the landscape up here it's breathtaking, because we're at this really unique transition between the tundra and the forest. So there's a lot of really incredible species to see that everybody's been talking about, but then also just what Leanne mentioned, for someone that does a lot of work with lakes, to see the amount of fresh water on the landscape, it was incredible and very exciting. And so, yeah, that was kind of my first impression, and then that impression stuck, and I've been coming back ever since. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. For myself, my first time coming to Churchill was actually before I was in this work position. So I was working in northern or central Manitoba, out of Cormorant, and took the train ride here. The train ride itself was an experience, and coming into Churchill, it was summertime. I didn't expect to see any bears, but I saw both bears and belugas, and it was the beginning of a love affair that's now been lasting, 10 plus years with the far north in Manitoba. So I definitely feel where all of you are coming from, and how we all fall in love with the community. All right, so I would like to know a little bit about your experiences with animals, if you've had any close encounters. And this is going to be an open question for all of you, so I will ask for a volunteer who'd like to speak first on that topic. Max, go right ahead.
Okay, I don't know, I've had lots of encounters. I mean, my dad works for Tundra Buggy Tours, so I get to go out a lot, so I get lots of encounters with polar bears and that. But I think that but of course that's in a Tundra Buggy, so it's all safe and friendly in that. But once you take, you start to realize just how scary these animals can be. Like this one time, I was walking home from a friend's place about 8 o'clock. I thought I heard some rustling around. I thought probably just a person or a dog, and I kept on walking home. Well, I get home and I hear bear shots, and I think, oh, well, that's just normal place, they're chasing the bear away out of town. That happens a lot at that time of year. But then the next day, I hear on Facebook that a few minutes after I left that place, they found a bear behind the house that I was walking in front of. And, you know, I didn't see it. It could have, that could have been the end of me. I don't know. But I don't know. I've never actually seen a bear, but I've been close to one in town.
And probably very thankful that you didn't end up seeing that one.
Yes, I am very thankful that I didn't end up seeing it. I'm actually more thankful that it didn't see me.
True, very true. Would anyone else like to contribute? Any close encounters you've had with wildlife?
Sure.
All right, Tina, go right ahead.
Well, my dad works at the complex, so one day he got called in to fix something after working a day shift. And he called in another guy to help him. When the guy left, when he got to his house, he called my father saying, "You should stay in the complex and don't go anywhere." My dad's like, "Why?" "Because there's a polar bear in your backyard, a cub." The next morning, we go and look outside, and there's tracks. I have a 10-foot fence, and 10 feet away from the fence was its tracks. So it went like a cat and jumped over the fence, and it was in my backyard. That night, about 10 o'clock, I was hearing noises in our backyard. This happened because people do like to walk by that area at times. So it was like, oh, there's probably just kids in my class being themselves. But the next day on the news, the next day people were talking about how there was a bear in Selkirk Street and on the back way. And I was like, wow, there was a polar bear in our backyard. And the size of its footprint was like, holy crap, it's like 2 sizes the footprint of mine, and it's a cub. That is humongous. But since it could jump so high, it's really nervous and scary knowing that there was a polar bear in your backyard that night. And that its feet are like 2 times the size as your feet, and it just jumped right over your fence like nothing.
Absolutely. I find it so amazing about how the polar bear can jump like that.
So high. That's like 10 feet. And then like 10 feet over, you see its footprints. And it wasn't like it like feet. It was just like a straight on 4 footprint and like walked away. And, like, it didn't like stumble and almost fall.
It cleared that fence.
Just went straight 4 feet.
Absolutely. I understand. That's phenomenal. We do have a couple of comments and questions here that I'm going to get to, and then we're going to come back to this question as well. The grade 6-7 class from D of M gives a nice shout out to all of you. They said the girls and Max, you're doing a fantastic job. We also have a question, and I'm unsure who wants to take this question, but how do animals adapt to the cold? So who would like to take that one? Elisa, you'll certainly.
Yeah, so animals adapt to habitats over long periods of time. It takes thousands of years often for an animal to start using an Arctic habitat and be well adapted to it. And I can mostly just speak to the polar bear. So the polar bear evolved from a brown bear over 150,000